live from the next lane.
Welcome back to Season 2, Episode 21 of the Randy Wilson Podcast. We just had a great podcast with Christy Coleman recently.
Yes, we did.
It's very exciting. It's good to see you again, Dr. Jana.
Likewise.
I feel like we are complimentary today.
Yeah, got the baddest bitch in the room in Richmond Zone over there.
Yeah, where'd you get that at?
This is Sophia Chang. She's an author. So authors supporting authors of color, you know what I'm saying?
By the way, if y'all don't know, Dr. Jana is a best-selling author.
It's a thing. Thank you.
It's cool to hang out with best-selling authors. I'm trying to make it a big focus right now in giving respect to statement brands and particularly Richmond brands. This is Richmond's Own by Radio B, and it's getting a lot of attention right now, and it's beginning to be, you have the RVA brand, you have the Richmond's Own brand, and Richmond's Own says something different than RVA. It took me a long time to buy this because I'm not from Richmond.
Right.
I've been here 16 years, but I think marrying a Richmond woman, it fully made me accept that, okay, I'm part of Richmond now.
Yeah, I consider myself Richmond because my children are all from here. I've been here 26 years, and it's hard for me to claim it.
Yeah.
I say it's grown on me like a wart, but I think the last 10 years have been pretty good for Richmond.
Yeah, I love Richmond.
I was like, how'd I get on this plantation?
Yeah.
And how do I get away?
I love that you say Richmond, not RVA, just to make that distinction.
Yeah.
Richmond.
Richmond.
Yeah. We're not RVA.
No.
Remember, this is a visual podcast, so you can check us out on YouTube if you're listening. However, this podcast will be heard everywhere. Today's guest, Chaz Barracks. Am I pronouncing your name correctly? Barracks. Tell me. I don't want to butcher it.
I was on a plane one day and somebody asked me if I was related to Barack Obama, and I was like, his first name, my last. Like, girl, how did you make that?
That's not how it works.
Yeah, and there's an extra R, so it's Barracks. Yeah, Barracks is fine.
Thank you.
Chaz Antoine is usually kind of like my stage name.
Cool.
It's like, why do you use my government name?
Chaz Antoine's a little bit easier for me, so I'm going to keep it Chaz Antoine. I don't know Chaz. I'm learning Chaz today through Dr. Jana, but I've seen Chaz before. That's just kind of how Richmond is. I've seen you at Brewer's Cafe. Ethan mentioned it, and I'm in there about 3-4 days a week.
Yeah, I definitely have met Ethan at Brewer's Cafe.
Cool.
I haven't been there in a while, but I definitely remember meeting Ethan there.
Ethan might as well be a part of the business. He's there all the time.
Now it's all coming together. I don't know where I saw you. I mean, I feel like, didn't you perform not too long ago, Common? I feel like I saw you with the orchestra, Richmond Symphony. That was like 2 years ago, right?
He's actually my brother.
Okay, you really have Common vibes. I don't know why. When I walked in the room, I was like, girl, you didn't tell me.
I know.
My hair's not even done.
Oh, God.
No, it's a similar look.
Well, thank you.
It's also just the vibe. I think Common has that chill.
This is new for me, though. Like, this is like 9 months. Like, I don't know. You probably can do that in 3 weeks. I don't know.
He's being subjected to that beard by his spouse.
Yeah, she told me I was looking like a pedophile.
Are you like using beard?
Earls.
Yeah, I feel like there's such a market for that right now.
I am using oil.
Earls.
I'm using oil, but it hasn't grown after like 5 months.
Yeah.
But I'm just trying to keep her happy.
I think versatility's good. Every couple months you got to change it up. So beard,
I was
hair.
a clean face till for like 37 and a half years.
I feel like clean face is like kind of like undergrad. You know?
Yeah.
Once we're like past 30, I like a little bit of like facial hair, just a little bit.
I'm a big fan of. I'm an actual. I think I'm like actually signed up as an RVA whiskerina.
Just a little bit.
Beard league. I like the beards. I think there's something wrong with your face if you ain't got no fur on it.
My wife was straight up like, "Look, you look like a pedophile with no hair on your face or your head." And then
I'm like, why do you have to like, it took me from Common vibes, and now I'm like, okay,
she's harsh.
I'm not even gonna.
Well, look, at first I had Pharrell. People used to say Pharrell when I was like 10 pounds lighter with no hair. But I like Common.
Yeah, Common's cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anyway, let's introduce our guest here. Chaz Antoine is a community leader and enthusiastic advocate for promoting diversity, inclusion, and cultural exchange. His career in international service has allowed him to pursue rich opportunities in the education and nonprofit sectors. Interestingly, Chaz and I have something here in common as Chaz service in the Bonner Scholars Program springboarded a passion to work within the interdisciplinary mediums for authentic community engagement. Chaz has studied and worked with nonprofits in South Africa, Australia, Japan. Chaz spent 2 years on the Japanese exchange teaching program, mentoring students and teachers about cultural exchange and utilizing the language studies to break cultural barriers and stereotypes. Chaz is the creator of IamMyLife.org. Again, IamMyLife.org. Go check it out now so you can learn more about Chaz while you're listening to this podcast.
to check it out though.
Yeah, don't do it right now. Don't do it right now. Just write it down.
Let me make sure I pay
Take a
that
note.
website bill.
Take a note.
Wait like 30 days.
I love it.
Yeah. Like, did I pay that WordPress bill?
IamMyLife.org serves as a platform for writing workshops and nonprofit collaborations, integrating personal narrative with the creative arts to sustain inclusion. Chaz holds a Bachelor's of Arts in Criminal Justice and is currently enrolled in the first cohort of the Masters of Nonprofit Studies program at the University of Richmond. And that means you are really smart because I could not get in there.
I don't know if you want to say really smart because that bio's a little outdated because I definitely finished that program.
Okay.
And now
You sent me an outdated.
No, I don't know where you got that from, but it's okay. We'll just do a little quick update because
Cool.
in real time I'm right here.
Cool. Fill us in.
Yeah, so the master's program I finished in 2016. That's University of Richmond's phenomenal nonprofit studies master's program. Shout out to everybody that was in the first cohort because that was a interesting time.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm at VCU finishing up my PhD in media art and text, and that will be done in May. So
Cool.
Yeah, kind of like public scholars, kind of how I like to identify. So just really thinking about how can you utilize the resources of the academy to basically provide free access to knowledge.
Cool.
Because I know I'm one of the few that are going to go into a PhD program coming from my background, and so I don't think that we need to constantly be thinking about college equals success, but also just how can the Black folks, queer folks that are in college, that are working in these university spaces, kind of share resources publicly.
Cool.
Cool.
Well, I was really excited. I don't know any other, I've been out of school obviously a long time, but when I read the Bonner thing, that was...
Were you a Bonner Scholar?
I was a Bonner Scholar as well.
Shout out!
Ended AmeriCorps.
You know that
You got a
about
little
you.
drink? Give me a little cheer. You don't have that.
Here, I'll do one.
Yes,
There wasn't one.
I do get super warm and fuzzy when I meet other Bonner Scholars, or should I say Bonner alums?
Yeah.
Because that program, their mission is access to education through the opportunity to serve.
Yes.
And so I don't take credit for just I worked in a lot of nonprofits, and yes, I did do a lot of amazing work with nonprofits, but Bonner, that scholarship is what springboarded me
too.
to really think constantly about, or think simultaneously about education and service.
Yes.
Literally because, we had to work with nonprofits throughout our undergraduate career in order to get that
Yes. Which
scholarship.
nonprofit did you work with?
I worked with Horizon Roof for a little bit, which is in Richmond.
Very familiar, North Side, yeah.
Yep, they do prison reentry and ex-offender services. And they helped open 6 Points Innovation Center, which I'm now serving there as kind of the Blackademic in residence.
So you probably know
is what we call
Zenobia
it.
Bay.
I do know Zenobia Bay.
I sit on her board.
Incredibly talented.
Yeah.
Yes, so shout out to Lyrics and Beats.
Yes.
And everybody that's at
Some
6
amazing
Points.
artists. You know Smith Knight?
I don't know Smith Knight, but I know Zenobia is
he's
killing
just
it.
he's a young kid. Let's give him a shout out. He goes to, is it Cosby that's in Chesterfield County? Clover Hill High School, and he really has strong Drake vibes. He's 17 years old, and he's one of the only artists in the city that's under 18 that they are forcing in to allow him to perform, in 21-year-old.
I must have seen him perform through
he's
one of the programs.
He's biracial, I believe.
Okay.
So if you reckon, he has curly hair, light skin,
Tall? Yeah, I've seen him.
Very talented.
And then there's another young fellow named Aaron.
I know Aaron with dreads.
Yep. Aaron has
very passionate
and very dope style.
Yeah.
Shout out to Aaron.
Yeah.
Aaron and I and my sister Madison Moore, we DJ'd at a party at 1708. It was a Black queer takeover.
Okay.
And we kind of had the studio for the day, and we really just used the power of sound to complement the exhibit that they had going on, and people came in and out. And it was a pretty dope event. I like to kind of really think about how to use again scholarship and education to kind of do interdisciplinary projects. So whether that means curating a day where youth like Aaron can come, young adults like Aaron can come and DJ at an academic space, an art space, or just bringing academic resources to Six Pick. Being the Blackademic at Six Pick has been very dope for me. I think you would understand as well.
Yes.
I think with Bonner, I learned that service and community work is a reciprocal relationship.
Yes.
You're not just showing up somewhere and volunteering and then leaving and be I feel so good because I saved someone. You know? That's not how Bonner teaches you. And so I really learned to always go into these organizations realizing that like I can get just as much as I give in terms of building relationships.
Most definitely.
I'm a child of the incarcerated, so my mom was locked up for a majority of my older childhood. So working at Boys and Ruth was like a very strategic way for me to kind of learn and connect with that community, with folks that had served time in prison, with families that had been affected by the prison system, or should I say the white supremacist criminal justice system. And also seeing organizations, folks maybe who haven't been impacted by it, but who are working every day to make sure that people who have served time can re-enter a community and be respected and treated with humanity.
Yes.
I didn't see those kind of organizations when I was like a child.
Yeah.
So it was, Bonner really opened me up to like thinking about how can I kind of answer some of these questions through service work that I had as a kid.
Same thing for me. Boys and Girls Club, Bristol, Tennessee, and Bristol, Virginia was my Bonner placement for 4 years.
And was that your first time going to the Boys and Girls Club?
It was my first experience with the Boys and Girls Club.
Okay.
But it was relatable to like the recreation center. You know, it get same energy, but if it wasn't for the boys, well, first off, it kept me. I was fortunate enough to get paid also from my spot.
Yeah, that stipend helped us.
So it helped, and it moved me to Richmond.
Yes.
So my first job, I worked for the Boys and Girls Club in Richmond for 3 years in conjunction with a lot of other things. And if it wasn't for being introduced through the Bonner program, it was the first stepping stone for me. So it was great. So it was great. Again, I get that same feeling in regard to meeting another Bonner, because a lot of people, I know a lot of people who don't know what that means. And I was also a AmeriCorps as well.
Oh, you double dipped.
Service. Look, I believe service drives business. I'm very service oriented.
Yeah.
I believe in it.
I started out at West Virginia Wesleyan College, which a lot of people
Where?
know. At West Virginia Wesleyan College.
Okay.
I'm not shouting out them. I want to make that clear.
Yeah.
But no, I'm joking. I mean,
we need sound effects.
A great institution.
I'm gonna shout out University of Phoenix Online real quick. That's right.
But yeah, that was my first Bonner school, and I had a bad experience. I mean, academically the school was great.
Yeah.
It was in West Virginia, so need I say more? I was telling people I was like a triple minority: black, gay, black and gay.
Wow.
So just when I was in West Virginia, I just didn't have a good experience in terms of making friends, and I dealt with a lot of bullying, and I ended up transferring out. It was either that or my life.
Gotcha.
And so, but I didn't want to leave the Bonner program because the Bonner program had been the thing that had gotten me into college.
Yes.
Pre-Bonner, I was like, girl, I'm going to go to a 2-year school, and I'm going to transfer to a 4-year school.
So Bonner's not just University of Richmond?
No, it's at 80 colleges.
Yeah. I went to Emory and Henry College.
Tell your daughter, tell your kids. Yeah. I tell students about it all the time. I love that we're opening with this because it's such a good platform.
But this is a very free-flowing, I mean, your energy was good, and I think this kind of just rolled.
Yeah, it's at 80
like
schools.
University of Richmond exclusive.
No, and but different schools have different endowments. So like the double dip is like a joke that a lot of Bonners had, because when I got to, West Virginia had less money, of course, because it was a smaller school. It was in West Virginia, like et cetera.
My school was in Southwest Virginia, so not
school
much.
Did you go to?
Emory and Henry College, and I'm not shouting them out either.
But
I was an athlete.
Okay.
So it was the stereotype is if you're a black athlete going to school in Appalachia.
And you were a Bonner?
Yeah, with that all the black athletes became Bonners because that was ways that they could kind of put together your academic package. You can't get a full ride
unless you're an
Division III, at a Division III school though. So they have to combine service, education, and athletics.
That actually sets you up for success.
Yeah.
Kind of. I mean, I'm teaching now, and I have students that are athletes, and I would love to talk about that. But so when I got to University of Richmond, they allowed you to count your Bonner hours as work study. So a nigga was getting paid.
Yeah.
Like this college money, I was like, wow. So I got to really, sustain myself, and not worry about meals and not worry about books and those kinds of things throughout my sophomore through senior year of college, because I transferred to University of Richmond sophomore year. But the Bonner program, I was very active in the national network and teaching. I'm now a professor at University of Richmond, and teaching there, I interact with students all the time who do service work and students who don't. And they're always talking about kind of like the Richmond bubble, and like one of my students wrote about how like this campus should not be called the University of Richmond because it's in the West End. It should be called University of West End because they sell this kind of like Richmond dream, and then when you get there thinking that you're going to be immersed in the city, you're very isolated.
No.
And the campus, racism by design, it's designed to be very isolated from Richmond downtown.
Right.
Yeah.
So for me, I don't share that experience because as a Bonner, we were so pushed to leave campus. And like, I think even now I'm thinking about how we were talking about, non-conforming identities and just how queer I am in terms of the life that I live.
Mm-hmm.
I think that you should never be like looking for everything that you are at a college campus
In your camp-
or in your workplace. Like
Yeah.
you need, if you're going to move to San Francisco for a job, like you can't just expect that job to be like your community.
Right.
Yeah.
And so because they're never going to get us. Right.
Yes.
And so I think it's really important for students, I think now especially, to think about like, not what it means to make an impact on your college campus, but what does it mean to be like a citizen of a new city for 4 years?
Well, I think that's a good segue point. Dr. Jana and I got together after episode 15 and said, hey, we want to recognize people who are doing good in the community. Obviously, it's pretty obvious what you're doing, but I'm interested if you can kind of get it. What was the reason, Dr. Jana, that you thought about Chaz?
Well, Chaz is...
He made the top 7. It's a big deal in Richmond.
It is a big deal.
Top 7?
We came up with 7 people, and
Yeah.
7 is an interesting number too.
Yeah.
That we thought were people that were do-gooders.
Yeah.
So she had you on that list, and obviously I've been learning a lot through her, through the people in regards to who some of these folks are.
Through them.
Yeah.
Well, catch that. You're going to delete that out.
Say that again.
No,
I caught it, but I'm learning.
We're gonna talk about that in our next episode.
Oh, okay.
So I allow for she's, but they's are my preferred.
Got it.
So yeah, I thought about you, Chaz, because one of the things that I admire about you is that you are very intentional about existing in multiple lanes, right? A lot of people just kind of double down in one area and that's their thing, and that's fine. It's great to do one thing, but I've watched you. You're in filmmaking, you're in podcasting, you're in academia, you yourself are an act of political revolution. Like everything about you is showing up, is activist, is informing, and that's extraordinary because it is an extraordinary way to use your life. So when I was trying to curate folks who I felt like would add value to our viewers and our listeners, you are moving forward with super intentionality and making a difference with every waking breath, and that's my kind of people.
Yeah. Sound effect.
It's important. Look, the energy you brought into this room and how we're approaching this conversation.
We're Geminis.
It's great.
Tiffany and I.
I'm a
That's
Cancer.
why.
That's interesting.
Ooh,
Wow.
Don't cry on this episode. I know.
Oh my God!
But it's
Yeah.
the previous 2 interviews were with historians, and so you came in a good time where I think it kind of changes the flow for our audience with the energy you brought, and the things that you're doing in the community obviously a little different.
Yeah, I mean, I totally appreciate that because
Yeah.
you're definitely somebody that I look up to as my, femininist Gemini queer
Thank you.
fellow. Yeah, so I feel like when I first moved to Richmond and really started getting my footing here.
From where? West Virginia?
No, I'm from Connecticut.
Okay.
Family's Jamaican.
Okay.
I was born in Connecticut, so I'm from New England. So
Okay.
Richmond was so different for me. But I knew I didn't have a great time in Connecticut. I mean, a lot of queer kids just don't in some of our hometowns, and so when I left and came to college, et cetera, after the experience I had in West Virginia with the bullying, I definitely was like, okay, if I'm gonna transfer out, this is it. I'm gonna go to a city and I'm gonna be 100% myself. I'm gonna get involved in the things I want to get involved in. I'm not gonna think about what means success coming from my family. I'm just gonna do the things that I want to do. And literally, people can tell you, when I started at University of Richmond as a kind of broken sophomore, didn't know where my life was going. Definitely for every friend I met, it's hi, I'm Chaz and I'm gay. You know what I'm saying? And I am black and I am feminine and I'm all these things that I think are conditioned. They were conditioned for me to kind of repress.
Right.
And because I had experienced that really low moment with the bullying at an older age, right? Like a freshman in college, you're 18, 19.
Yeah.
I was just no, I'm not.
Not
Yeah.
doing this.
So, and it's interesting that I think you really hit it well in the sense of it was very intentional for me to show up as my authentic self
Yes.
in various spaces because, at a private liberal arts school like University of Richmond, there are ways to be interdisciplinary, but like, yeah, it is weird that like I majored in criminal justice, but also kind of like minored in dance and like was in some theater shows, and now I'm doing like podcasting and also make short films, but I never went to film school. Like,
So you have your own podcast as well?
yes,
Oh, yes.
It's called Black Matter. Just started. We're on SoundCloud,
Cool.
and it's a part of my dissertation methodology because so much of the traditional dissertation writing is very isolating.
Yes.
Is very like ivory tower. You're supposed to be locked up in your office alone. Yeah, and so I really wanted to create I wanted to create a way for me to talk to folks that I think embody my theoretical praxis. And so I really look at like Black dimensionality and kind of the simultaneity of Blackness and queerness, and thinking about how Blackness kind of reimagines and reclaims and kind of like shows up into spaces and takes over these spaces in beautiful, nuanced, queer ways, right? Like reimagining spaces that were not intended for us. And not only just showing up in those spaces, but like totally, as Tiffany's work kind of, showcases, totally just kind of like reclaiming them, right? Like reorganizing, like this is how things are going to go because my Black ass
Because I
runs
showed
this
up.
place.
That's
Yeah. So yeah, interdisciplinary scholarship.
Is
Black Matter.
Black Minds Matter Project?
No, but shout out to Atari, who runs that podcast.
Okay. I gotta find
I have to tell you that it's a total coup that we got Chaz here, because Chaz been trying to get me on Chaz's podcast for like
No shade,
for
but
like
yes, I
forever.
have. So I'm like, it's
And-
interesting that I'm at your podcast.
Yeah, it is.
When are you coming to mine?
I'm gonna be there, like
Yeah.
the first.
And
corner.
mine is low production. We don't have all this because again, it's just my a way to share my dissertation project
Yeah.
publicly,
Gotcha.
right? And I'm not even with Don't Touch My Hair, the short film that I directed, and the ones that are coming from that. It's irrelevant that like that I didn't go to film school, or I don't know how to run a proper podcast. For me, I just really think that all of us as Black folks, especially Black queer folks, like we embody these kind of knowledges that need to be learned from. Shout out to Julian Glover for teaching me that. And I really,
we got Julian.
Julian's coming up next, so I'm gonna shout out my homegirl. But yes, I mean, with I My Life, that's kind of similar to what I do, is really thinking about what can be learned from people's raw personal narratives. And when I say raw, I mean Black, right? Like I mean non-code switching. I mean queer folks showing up as their authentic self, being able to wear feminine and masculine clothes, whatever the hell that means, and like no one questioning you. Like I dress and wear what I want to wear as a college professor. I wore heels the other day to class, and it's not to put on a show. It's because it's
what I felt like
it's what I
wearing.
felt like wearing. And my students and I don't discuss my wardrobe, but I do know, like, we've had talks about like fashion and stuff, and just like how your body is a media piece, and so you sometimes can show up in ways that represent your politic. And I also think that Black queer bodies especially are constantly politicized. And so we have to kind of like reclaim that narrative. So I just love opening this up with like showing up into spaces as authentically yourself.
It was funny because I got to do a bunch of guest lectures at University of Virginia, and for me every day is a costuming opportunity.
Yes.
And I initially went with I'm doing all this blue, so one of my favorite uniforms is the blue button up and the blue brogue shoes, and the soles match my hair and the whole 9 yards. And then I realized, whoa, that's in that environment that would have been showing up way too conforming. And so I was very intentional about wearing my giant ankh and my Africa earrings and just kind of representing in a way that they would not expect me to show up, because I'm not going to button up for the white supremacists.
And
There's
it's
a delusion of
performance.
White supremacists, exactly.
Very democratic also in a Republican area.
I mean,
Very blue.
Yes.
you know.
In Charlottesville, I noticed that on your social media though. You did have the big
Yeah. It's a strange land down there, but yeah, I came to Richmond by way of Virginia Union, after having been the only person of color in all white institutions forever. I transferred in, and I didn't know what to expect, because I hadn't really been around my people very much, and it is one of the things that I am most grateful for, because my joke is I found out I was Black in 1996. It wasn't a big point of conversation. I think that my parents weren't trying to insulate me from it. I was raised by Black people, but I was raised in a good deal of privilege, and they sold me the American dream. My parents said, this is America, we're going to give you the best education that money can buy. You can have and do whatever you want, just don't hurt nobody. And I'm like, okay, and I believed it, right? And then, so when I ended up transferring to Virginia Union, I was just like, frankly, the only hard times that I'd ever had, the only experiences that even were close to bullying that I'd had were from Black people. The white people didn't really notice or care. They just treated me like whatever. So I was worried. And then I had a completely different experience at Union. because, you know, the things I got bullied for had more to do with the code that I was switching into. I was not sort of Black identified in a strong and visible way. You know, my intelligence was seen as a threat. My class was experienced as a threat. So when I went to Union, it was the most profound thing for me was it was the first time in my academic career that my teachers expected me to perform. They didn't expect me to be the lowest performer in the class. And that was the first time I didn't realize that it had been the other way until these Black professors just expected me to be amazing.
Can you add to the fact that you were 15 years old? That's so special.
When I started college?
Yes.
Yeah, that's weird.
15?
Super,
Yeah.
super
I would have got
smart.
me a 19-year-old man.
Well, I was still at home at 15. It was like my junior year.
Would have got me a senior.
No, well, that's how I ended up with them children.
Would have did a year. Yeah, I would have did a year of college. Would have had a house by sophomore year.
I did a year at Union. I met a very handsome, half Jamaican man.
Yes.
And I got two real beautiful, you know, quarter Jamaican children. Yeah, but so I took the very long path. Undergrad was 10 years, 11 majors, 3 minors, 5 universities.
10
just
years to
my
do the
undergraduate.
BA. Wow.
Because I ran off,
And look
got
at you
married,
now.
had children. I never thought I would catch up.
We get there, though.
Only degree I did on time was the master's. That was 2
I
years.
was planning on going to a 2-year school, and it's you know, shout out to community colleges and associate programs.
Yes.
Like, that's what I wanted to do because I mean I'm Jamaican. We value work. This is like a cultural thing.
What part of Jamaica? I love Jamaica.
My mom's in Kingston.
Okay.
And I went as a child like once a year and then go occasionally.
Nice.
But I worked 4 jobs in high school and definitely just thought I really valued work because I had, you know, a dysfunctional and kind of a difficult childhood, and there were also beautiful parts of it as well, like the work ethic that my family raised me with. And so I was making money in high school because I needed to support myself. And so I looked at college, like these pamphlets and, you know, the Black people and the Asian people eating dinner on the green. And like, I'm like, that don't look like.
I was in that picture.
Like, how are they getting paid? How are they getting paid?
Wow.
Yeah. And so I looked at college as like, I'm supposed to like get in all this debt and sacrifice like my jobs that I'm having here where I'm making a little bit of money for myself and just like invest in education for 4 years. Like, how do you work? And so when Bonner and those things came along,
That's brilliant.
it definitely like was like, okay, this is a happy
That
medium.
fit your mental model.
Yeah, because I need to work. That's how that's just how I had to do in high school. And then I had, you know, I'm a kind of a product of white saviorism. Like I definitely had a nice white lady that I worked for who was very generous and very you know, just saw me as very gifted, and definitely invested.
Even saw you
in
as you are?
Yeah,
Thank
I mean,
you.
I am gifted, but you know, those tropes that come with that.
Yes.
And really invested in me. I worked for her, and she just really knew that I was like special, and really kind of told me like, well, I think that you should look at 4-year schools. And then not only that, she had like when she would have business trips, she would take me with her sometimes, and we would look at colleges. And so it was like, wow, like okay. And then I think because she thought that I was like so destined to go to a 4-year school, it made me just kind of like apply, and then I realized that I really love writing. And so my college essay was something that like caught a lot of eyes because I talked about my experience with being a child incarcerated and how, you know, these terms are problematic, right? Like when you label a child as at risk or child of the incarcerated, etc., that starts to kind of seep into your mind, and it makes you think about, well, is my now I'm a child incarcerated, I'm fatherless, I'm also a faggot, like all these labels, right? And so just thinking about how this person really was like, you can use that to your advantage, like you can tell your story, and you know, it really, now I really think about like, you know, Black folks and anti-respectability and how respectability politics kind of makes us assimilate. And at that time, that was like the first opportunity or portal that I really got to just like tell my story authentically, and not in these ways where I was ashamed of my childhood, but just thinking about how they built some of my resilience and my grit, and how it gave me a way to see college as like just accessing my fullest potential. I never saw it as like I need to go to University of Richmond and just really be a part of that community. It was about what is here.
What am I going to get out of this?
What is
for my
here that I
future?
can take and give it to as many Black and queer people as possible? What is here that I can take and enhance my everyday life? You know, education through service. I have so many students now that talk about like college and the real world, and for me it was all about kind of like I was in the real world when I was in college.
Can you give our audience your social media and plug your podcast, because
Oh, sure.
it's important.
So my Instagram is at @IamMyLife_Chaz. That's my personal Instagram. I would also follow at 6PickRVA. And then my podcast is Black Matter, Matter. One word. If you search it on SoundCloud, it should come up. If not, it's definitely on Anchor.
It's you're on Instagram as Black Matter?
No.
Instagram.
SoundCloud, that is the podcast. SoundCloud.
Okay.
And then Twitter, for mainly academic stuff, is CHZ_PhD.
Cool. Before we close out, we like to help our audience get to learn like the interesting, different things. Well, just the Richmond things about
Okay.
So, like, do you have a favorite Richmond place that you like to hang out?
That's a really good question. Let me think. I love the upper like statue garden, I think it's called, of the VMFA, the outside part.
Yeah.
I like to go there to I do a lot of movement there. So like I like to dance as kind of like a therapy thing. I like to go there and just do some movement work. As far as like other chill spots, I mean, I love the Urban Hang Suite, just because I'm like obsessed with the Vibe magazines everywhere. So I like to go there, and that's Kelly Lemon's spot right up the street. Where else would I like to go in Richmond? That's a really good question.
I see you at the ICA.
I go to the ICA occasionally. I'm usually at ICA when I'm like doing a program or so.
thing,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I see that's kind of like a workspace.
Yeah.
I live in Jackson Ward, so I love Jackson Ward, just like chilling in the neighborhood in terms of like I go on a lot of walks in Jackson Ward, and I'm trying to think.
Being that you live in Jackson Ward, do you have an opinion on the Navy Hill project?
I got real political real fast.
Yeah, you switch it up. I mean, I think that
You're right. I mean,
we
I
need
couldn't
to
help
be, and I can think about my Jackson Ward spot while we talk about this. I think real short that we just need to be a lot more critical as a city in terms of just not taking what we can get, you know?
Yeah.
And I also think that like the whole kind of, it makes me think a lot about like how colleges advertise diversity and inclusion. They plaster our faces with one white person and one Asian person and say that the university is inclusive.
Yeah.
And that's selling a product. Diversity sells a product. And that is not inclusion, right? That's plastering black bodies, making money off of students of color to kind of continue this narrative that like you're going to come here and you're going to sit on the grass and you're going to get all these friends from different backgrounds and it's going to be that easy.
Yeah.
And I think the Navy Hill project is similar in how it's being advertised, like affordable housing. Let me see the numbers, right?
I'm looking for accountability.
Yeah, so I think accountability is a really good way
I'm
to
for
put
it as long as I see black and brown people winning.
Yeah,
As
and I
long as
also
the
just think
access
that
and
like
opportunity.
Richmond is vastly gentrifying, and so
Yes.
I know that Richmond housing is like was once really really affordable. That's one of the reasons why I stayed in Richmond, and so I don't believe that like this project and the folks that are going to be building it are really going to think about affordable housing in the ways that they're advertising.
Yeah, that's my biggest feeling about it right there. You can't
Just
move
don't believe the
people
hype,
around.
right?
Yeah.
Like, don't believe the hype.
Yeah.
Don't, University of Richmond, University of West End, like, really think about just think beyond the marketing and
Context
beyond.
matters.
And accountability. Like, so when it's built, how are we going to hold people accountable in terms of those jobs? Like, are those jobs sustaining jobs? Is it something that folks can really make, not just livable salary, but like black people can buy dessert,
Yeah.
right? Like, can black people buy houses in Richmond with the salaries that they're going to get from
give
these
me
jobs?
accountability and put metrics and accountability behind it. And if people don't do what they're supposed to do, then I would like to see penalties that then go back into the black and brown communities. Like we can insist on what we need. We just, like you said, we have this mentality of we'll just take what we can get, and that's really.
Especially in terms of, gentrification is this thing that's going to happen. Cities are going to change, they're going to develop. I just think that we need to look at what's happening in other cities. And Richmond, in my opinion, this may not be a popular one, but I think Richmond has this obsession with kind of like being, like the other cities, so like a DC, et cetera. But we are a tier 2 city, and I think that's why people love us. So like, let's stay small, let's stay local, and as we build, or quote unquote, as we gentrify, let's find ways that keep it Richmond and not RVA, because I think people like Richmond because it's Richmond.
Yeah.
I don't want to drive through Richmond 10 years from now and it looks similar to a DC, or it looks like, there's a Trader Joe's and there's a Target and then there's the ICA museum right on the,
Where are the people?
Where are the black people?
Yeah.
Someone taught me how like the intentional design of VCU, like if you look at the way that like broad is structured, that all of that was like intentionally designed to kind of hide
Hide.
Jackson Ward.
Yes.
And girl, like when you really think about like racism by design and like intentional architecture and how things are put, I just think that we need to be having those conversations
Yes.
before we like do another.
Big giant project. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Favorite music artist?
I mean, I'm a big fan of Moses Sumney. Probably not as huge in the mainstream. I love Moses Sumney. Because I'm black and queer, of course, I love Frank Ocean. I like Frank Ocean's older stuff.
I like Frank Ocean, and I'm not queer, just black. But
Yeah.
I really like Frank Ocean.
I love me some Frank Ocean just because of the vibes
I don't actually know his music.
that it
I'm aware
gives.
that it exists, but
Moses Sumney, Frank Ocean.
Ocean's great.
I love, and I met them through the Insecure soundtrack.
Does him being queer have anything to do with why you like his music?
Yes, it does. I think that Frank Ocean, and again, when I say queer, I'm not.
I don't even
necessarily-
use the word queer. I only use it because you use it.
So when I say queer, I'm not necessarily referring to sexuality.
Okay.
Let's like make that known on the podcast.
Okay.
I'm really thinking about how queerness tied to kind of like reimagining, non-conforming, non-assimilating to what we're supposed to do as black men.
Norms.
And the norms, yeah. And I think Frank Ocean's music really does break through
Defies some of them.
some of those norms. I think his aesthetic, I think the ways that he like intentionally doesn't participate in like mainstream culture in some ways, like he doesn't perform at like big arenas and stuff. Even though he's that big,
Yeah.
he has just this queer aesthetic to his artistry, and that is a good segue to my other ultimate favorite artist, which is Solange. I'm a huge
Oh, I
Solange
love
fan.
Solange, too.
I write about Solange. I've been a Solange fan even way back with the other albums when she was like hella weird. She still is. When people didn't understand what Solange was doing, I was still a fan. I love her use of filmmaking. So thinking about that, like Solange uses film as an apparatus to just show black people that she loves us.
Yeah.
And she's really asking us to reflect on our own black experiences.
I think she's going through divorce.
She is, yeah.
And is her husband, isn't he from Richmond?
He's from Richmond. Her husband's a Richmonder.
I thought so.
He's bald, look
Yeah.
kind of similar to you.
Yeah.
Cool guy.
Oh, maybe-
and
maybe I
Are you
he's,
getting divorced from Solange?
yeah, right. I'm like, wait,
Common?
now you kind of like
Solange
him,
was
yeah.
married?
Because I think he's growing a beard too.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of Solange. I just love the whole aesthetic.
Yeah.
And the artist that she kind of represents, like Robert
Yeah.
Pruitt is behind some of her artistry. He has a piece in the VMFA, just really paints amazing images that like you can just feel that this person is like, I love black people and I'm painting images that show that love.
I don't know why she was here, but she was here not too long
She's
ago.
always
Yeah,
here
she
because
comes
her,
here all
her
the time.
At the
ex-husband's
Quark Hotel.
family
Yeah.
is here. So Solange, Moses Sumney, and then by way of the Insecure soundtrack, I'm sure people that are listening watch Insecure. I love Nick Hakim. I think Nick Hakim is a Latino artist, but his, again, very queer vibes. Like his aesthetic, his use of sound, like every song just seems like it's just so well put together in ways where he's intentionally not trying to conform to a certain genre.
Cool.
And that's what I mean by queer.
Gotcha.
Like Moses Sumney, for sure. There's some stuff you listen to, you're like, okay, this is like opera, R&B / a little bit of hip hop vibes, modern dance movements. Like he just has this aesthetic that cannot be categorized.
pigeonholed,
Yeah.
Can't be pigeonholed, and that's what I mean by queer. When I think about
That's
music,
nice.
I definitely listen to artists that I think are not trying to, like when I think of like a Taylor Swift or like a Katy Perry.
I hate Taylor Swift.
Yeah, like, but they're trying to fit a certain narrative, right? Like you can take Taylor Swift out of her body, and in 20 years,
I'm
we'll have
right with
a
Kanye,
similar
by the way.
artist doing the same thing, right?
Yeah.
So Moses Sumney, there cannot be another one. Nick Hakim, there can't be another one. Solange, there cannot be another one.
So yeah, genre bending. Yeah.
Sounds like
Awesome.
queerness, right?
It does.
Like
genre
today we might,
bending.
today we might wear a heel. Tomorrow we might do a man pant. Like, I mean, I also love turtlenecks because I feel like turtlenecks can't be contained to a gender, right? There.
I don't like cowl necks though. I hate a cowl neck.
What is that?
I don't know what
It's
that
the
is.
one that's big and like just like loops down.
No, I like the
Oh,
kind of
yeah.
like thermal turtleneck.
No,
kind of
turtleneck
feel.
needs to be here.
I love a
don't like
turtleneck.
the little
I'm
hang
always,
one.
yeah,
It's
I
like
love a
an
turtleneck.
old turtleneck. It's just got saggy. That's what a cowl neck is.
What kind of music do you listen to?
I listen to all music.
As a kid, I was a big Tina Turner fan and Selena fan.
Yeah.
I saw Selena as queer in many ways. Again, not about sexuality. Like we have all seen that movie, Selena,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But that's a really good example to think about queerness in terms of like she really just like sent her joy, and she showed up in her authentic self. She really, as a young black like closeted kid growing up, she just taught you what Mexican culture was about through her lens. Like
Yeah.
I really identified with Selena as a kid because
That's amazing.
I just loved her, just her aura, her aesthetic was just free flowing and liberating, and she taught you about her culture along the way. Like she didn't become a mainstream artist and then like forget about teaching
Forget
us
who she
about
was.
Mexican
Yeah.
culture.
Yeah.
Like, I learned about Mexican culture
Cool.
through Selena.
Yeah.
Yes, and I'm definitely a Whitney Houston fan.
Yeah,
As a kid,
of
I've
course.
listened to Whitney
That
all
was
the
my
time.
whole life.
You have an old soul, I can tell.
I was
A little bit.
I was trying to grow up to be
I
Whitney
cried
Houston.
when Whitney Houston died. And I saw Whitney Houston as queer. I mean, we've seen with her best friend writing that book that there are some narratives that are coming out. But I definitely always identified my queerness with Whitney Houston because she was not like this ballroom gown woman. Like if you really watch the reality show, like I was a big Whitney fan in that way. She was like jeans and a t-shirt and like all that stuff. It was forced upon her in terms of the artistry. So I was a big Whitney fan. Escape. I love Escape, and I love that they made a comeback.
Yeah.
I was a big fan of black female groups, TLC, Escape. I was obsessed with Destiny's Child. I'm a little too young for En Vogue. Like I did like
naming
them.
all these old people.
Yeah.
I'm like, I didn't know you was that old, Chaz.
Escape is not that old. I feel like they're like what, early 40s.
Yeah, in vocal close.
And remember Black?
Yeah, I like
Come on,
that.
Black.
Yeah.
And one of them passed away.
I didn't know
I
that.
don't know
When
who
it-
Black is.
Boom like an 808, baby, boom.
Is
You don't know Black?
I know Black.
I was a fan of Black.
I'm terrible with music.
She wasn't Black.
And then remember
I wasn't black back then.
yeah, you weren't Black. Remember
You said
the
it all.
scholar in me is like, we can't say that now. Remember 702?
She said it. She
Did
said
you know
it.
702?
702, yeah, the girl from Powers in 702.
Yes!
I had a big crush on, not the real light skinned one,
Tiffany, we
but
gotta
the one
get-
in the middle. The one in the middle. I had that long hair.
I didn't have a crush on any of them because, you know.
Yeah.
I'm like, which one are you talking about?
Look, this is my group.
I paid attention to them for their artistry.
Yeah, I was looking at her ass. I was joking, okay. Nah. Donnell Jones, Music Soul Child, those were inspirations to me. I grew up a liberal arts kid. You know, my mom had my brother.
A liberal arts kid?
Liberal arts kid. My mom
Music
had my
Soul
brother.
Child is beautiful.
My mom had my brother playing the piano. He's upstairs. I was in music courses, theater, plays, Camelot, Wizard of Oz. That was a big part of like.
What about Cisco?
I didn't like Cisco.
His slow songs.
I didn't like Cisco.
The slow song, I was a big fan of. I wasn't a big fan of Usher. I never understood.
Me neither.
I liked Usher. Is it mainstream?
He's a little
If it was
mainstream.
mainstream, I liked
But
it a
people
lot.
listening, like, turn on Moses Sumney
I'm gonna check.
and
I will
Nick
listen.
Hakim.
When we get off the
This-
cast, I'm gonna
yeah.
have to Google these
Yes,
folks.
Moses Sumney, Nick Hakim, and then, you know, Solange is just
Yeah,
the topping of it all.
obviously.
And Moses Sumney I think, has a lot of, like, Solange vibes, and I definitely think he has an amazing black queer vibe if you're vibing with what I'm saying in terms of, like, thinking about queerness outside of sexuality.
Mm-hmm.
Moses Sumney is an amazing artist to think about, someone that's just, like, really pushing those boundaries and playing with gender in these ways
I
that
like
we need to see.
all of the music as long as it's not yelling at me. And I literally I was
I
raised.
love
I was
Cardi
born
B,
in El
though.
Paso, Texas. So I listen to some country music.
Really?
Don't mind.
I like Tim
Taylor
McGraw.
Swift.
Don't
I
get me
do
wrong.
like broad thing, but I just don't like anyone yelling at me ever.
Do you like the young queer dude that's going mainstream for country music? What's his name? Little Nas.
Lil Nas.
I'm
I
like,
don't
what
like
happened,
Talented.
what happened to grown up Nas? How does he feel about his name being taken? These are the things that concern
True.
me.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
And
no,
we can't like end the podcast without talking about Lauryn Hill. I mean,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
something that can
God.
unify all of us,
Okay,
right?
well, yes. Okay,
Yes.
we can agree there.
I mean, the best album of all time
Yes.
is that.
Miseducation of Lauryn Hill.
Yeah.
Jesus, like even now, it's so crazy how like that album is timeless. Like
Yeah.
that album and the movie Waiting to Exhale.
Yeah.
Now, as like a quote unquote, as a black queer scholar, I listen to those texts now, and
Yeah.
I'm just like, I know so much more. Like,
Yeah.
I understand it so much more. That
Yeah.
album, and Lauryn Hill also in terms of queerness, I think that she has always told us who she
Yes,
is.
who
She's
she is.
always told us her struggles.
Yeah.
She's always showed up late to concerts. Like
Yeah.
she's always looked at the rules and been like, my black behind ain't gonna follow those rules.
Yeah, yeah.
That's why I love her as an artist.
Well, unfortunately, we got to close, but I really enjoy the energy and the
Good.
information that you
Great.
brought to this show. I think it's going to be great for our audience. It's going to definitely swing things. Thank you for being on the show, even though you haven't been on his show.
I know I'm
yet.
going to be. That's the next thing that's
You
happening.
come into Black Matter.
Oh yeah, I'm coming.
Black Matter is a little more like, let's say, a little after dark.
Mm-hmm.
We like to have guests on that will have a little drink and kind of loosen up. And we
Yeah.
like to talk to
Lord.
scholars and artists about their work, but in ways that are
Mom, I
like.
apologize in advance for whatever happens. On
Yeah, yeah. We like to talk to people about, just like talk about your work in ways that we're not code switching. Like right
Yeah.
now, like we talk
Yeah.
about very intellectual
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
But we're talking about it in our dialect,
Yeah.
in ways that black folks, just enhance. the
Well, I'm
English.
definitely going to subscribe. I appreciate you coming on. Please subscribe. We're
Yes.
going to cut this thing up and
What's the name of this podcast?
the Randy Wilson podcast.
You might had to take that out. Tiffany and I are friends. I mean, we
There's
texting
fine.
Kiki.
It's all good.
Yeah,
It's
so we don't.
fine.
We texted Kiki. Tiffany was
See,
like, "Girl, you want to come on my podcast?" I was like, "Sure." I don't need to know the name. I don't
This
need.
is why I get all the nice high production value because it's the Randy Wilson show and it's like
Oh, okay.
I'm the
It's your
It
podcast.
is that.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I'm just the co-host.
Well, Randy, it looks like I'm going to subscribe to the Randy Wilson show.
Thank you. Thank you.
You can subscribe to my new YouTube show. We got a
Yes,
YouTube
you gotta
channel.
plug that. You gotta plug that.
Oh, yeah.
Next show we're gonna plug that at the beginning.
All right, sounds
Yeah.
good.
Yes, I will definitely subscribe.
Thank you, and I'm gonna
I'll
make sure I
share it
get your
out.
social media, and I'm glad that we could have you on the show.
Thank you.
It was definitely a
It
pleasure.
was great to meet you, too.
You too. Thank you very much.
Always fun to spend time with you, Dr. Jana.
This was 21 or 21. I've lost count.
22.
22. This was episode 22 of the Randy Wilson podcast with our co-host Dr. Tiffany Jana and Chaz Antoine. See you next time. Thank you.
Bye.